From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. We're here in the 22 News Plus studios. A great topic today. It's 2025. There's technology all around us, from your smartwatch to your cell phone, whatever it might be. And it all detracts and takes away our attention. But there's an importance to being bored. And Dr. Rob Robinson is across the desk from me today. He is the Clinical Director of Family Care Counseling and Associates. And Dr. Rob and I are going to talk about the importance of boredom.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Rob,
Great topic.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, when we connected about this and you said, let's come in and talk about boredom and the benefits of boredom. And I was like, wow.
I figured you and I could just sit here for half an hour quietly.
And not say a word.
Wait.
Bore the heck out of people.
But that's a good thing from what
honestly,
I hear.
Honestly, I mean, I thought that was a brilliant topic. And I mean that sincerely, because you look into it and you say boredom, because people typically complain about being bored.
Right.
I mean, how many times have you said to yourself, just bored? Right?
Bored out of my mind.
But then it turns out that when you start doing a deeper dive about this, it has some benefits from a mental health and a physical standpoint.
Okay.
Right? So one of the cool things that happens, that discovered, is that the brain has a default mode, so that when we're kind of going offline from just doing nothing,
right,
this default mode kicks in, and it actually can trigger creativity.
Really?
So when the mind is a bit calmer and it's not as stressed and flooded with all kinds of stuff, the neocortex actually becomes more active. So the opportunity for being able to think creatively in that space of boredom actually is stimulated and triggered, which I think is fascinating.
So is that why, you hear, like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or some of these people, they talk about, my greatest ideas come when I'm standing in the shower. Or, I'm just driving in the car, I'm just sitting there, or I'm exercising.
Right.
Your mind is active, even though you're not,
right.
So you're thinking about things and you're getting creative. You come up with, the Apple Watch or, an electric car or whatever it is these people are doing.
But yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? That's exactly the point. I think that when the mind is off task, if you will, and this kind of default mode is, triggered, it's kind of like a computer running in the background, but you're not not doing anything on it, but it's running and it's processing stuff. Same with the brain, right? So that space can actually be the trigger for unbelievable inventions. In fact, I remember reading a book. This is many, many years ago. A psychiatrist named Carl Whitaker would have these insights that would come to him. Sometimes just laying awake at night, bored.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get this. So he wrote a book called Midnight Musings of a Family Therapist. Just wrote these things down on a paper, and then that became a book. And all of this creative stuff came out of that bored, kind of calm mind space.
So how is technology and the lack of, I look at my kids, they're never bored. They're always, and I'm going to grab my phone, they're always sitting there. They're on this thing, they don't just sit there. They pick up their phone and they do this. They scroll mindless videos or whatever. Is that hurting? Well, even I find myself doing it sometimes too.
Well, I mean, it becomes fascinating, actually, right? Because you can just go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just drive down your street and people are literally walking by themselves with their phone, and they're falling off curbs and, walking into intersections.
Those are funny videos to watch, though, Rob.
People falling in fountains in the
Exactly.
malls. I know, right? That's hysterical. But no, I think curious thing. And so in prepping for this and thinking about it, I said to my wife, do you ever notice kind of what we do once in a while when we're watching a program and then all of a sudden a commercial comes on and you grab your iPhone
Absolutely.
and you start looking at your iPhone?
Right.
As if you have to fill every minute with something, right? So it actually, the technology piece, and particularly the iPhone, impedes the ability to just go to shutdown mode. Just be quiet for a minute.
But what's fascinating, though, is I think there's more creativeness in the world now. Just looking at it, it just seems like there's more creative spirit than ever. Maybe because it's just the population's greater.
Well,
but
I mean, that in some respects, that makes sense to me, right? Because
okay.
I think, I mean, there's no lack of stimulation, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, there's no lack of being bombarded with all kinds of content,
Right.
all kinds of stimulating
All the
ideas,
time.
right? So in many respects, I think that would yield more creative thought, and
Okay.
that can spark inventions or ideas, right? But I believe that the the origin of that opportunity really does come from the ability to just be with some space, be bored, right? Don't fill it with picking up the iPhone instantly.
Right.
Give yourself a chance to see what rises to the surface when there's absolutely nothing else happening, right?
It's interesting though, because I like to be bored because I know the value of it, and to your point, waking up in the middle of the night and having these thoughts, that happens, during the day, just walking or sitting there on like in the summer months, I'll sit there on the back deck and just
Oh my
do
God,
nothing,
I love that. So
watch the birds and the
yeah, we
squirrels
are
and just let my mind wander.
we are kindred spirits, my friend. No, I mean that sincerely. So one of the things that I do when I'm going into like doctor's appointments or
Yep.
waiting rooms or whatever, I intentionally do not bring my iPhone, right? So people all have iPhones in the
You're
waiting
that creepy guy who's just sitting there staring at everybody else.
room. Seriously, right? How so that looks nowadays, that's
It looks
bizarre.
weird,
Like,
right?
what is this creepo, like you just said, doing? Right. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, just hands on my lap and just sitting there with absolutely
Right,
nothing but stillness and taking in the space. Now, that sounds crazy, but that to me is one of the most stress relieving opportunities. So,
right.
so that what the goal there is, encourage boredom and eliminate waiting as a negative experience.
Right.
Don't complain. Just be with it. I don't have to have the iPhone, leave it in the car. I'm just going to sit quietly here, take in the
Soak it in.
space.
Right.
It's unbelievable. And what you get in touch with can be very, very valuable.
We are going to continue that thought. We're up on our first commercial break. We're here with Dr. Rob Robinson talking about boredom. Don't pick up your phone.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to this edition of In Focus. I have Dr. Rob Robinson across the desk from me this morning. Dr. Rob, thank you again for joining me. We're having the conversation about boredom. Hopefully you didn't pick up your phone during that short break and you just sat there and
How true is that?
mindlessly took in your
Right?
world. You said that boredom has health benefits. Does
Yes.
it reduce your stress? Because I know sometimes being bored can increase my stress. So if I'm, in line at the grocery store,
Oh boy.
waiting for an appointment to start, somebody's running late, then that just gets my heart rate going. But you say more often than not, boredom helps us.
Well, I love that point you're making here, because I think one of the essential components to mental well-being and then ultimately physical well-being is to increase awareness,
Okay.
self-awareness. In other words, not identifying ourselves as the thinker, but as the watcher,
Okay.
right? So the higher order functioning in presence is being the watcher, watching what our mind is coming up with,
Okay.
right? So to your point, if you're in the grocery store or you're in a waiting area, or you're at the pharmacy or whatever, and there's 6 people ahead of you, and you start this mental narrative of complaining, like, oh my God, this is just the express lane with 11 items. You start counting the number of, and then it starts.
Absolutely.
Well, your blood
I'm that
pressure.
guy.
No, I'm serious, right? This is supposed to be right. And instead, if you can just work with that space and allow that what we would typically say this boring space to become a space that you becomes user friendly, and you bring awareness to what is arising in your mental narrative. Now you have an opportunity to be able to say, what am I doing?
Right.
What am I doing here?
I'm wasting energy stressing
Yeah.
about 11 items versus 10 items,
Right.
a cashier or an environment that I can't control.
There's
Why
no
am I doing
question.
this?
I mean, you and I, in our segments together in the past, we've talked about Eckhart Tolle, who's a spiritual teacher. And one of the things that, he talks about is, it's not the situation that creates the stress and the suffering and the pain. It's the mental narrative about it,
Yeah.
right? It's what we tell ourselves about what's happening.
Right.
So when there's boredom, you really do have an opportunity to increase self-awareness, to hone the ability to be able to watch what the mind is up to.
So, but what benefit does self-awareness have to our overall lives?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question.
And we're down to no,
No, I'm
just
serious.
kidding.
I love that.
Really?
I mean, no, honestly,
Okay.
I'm not being disingenuous. That's a really, really powerful question. So awareness. So when I use the term consciousness versus unconscious,
Okay.
right? Conscious versus unconscious.
Awake versus asleep.
It's not precisely. It's not the Freudian interpretation of conscious unconscious. It's really about whether or not there's awareness to what the mind is up to. People who are conscious, right, and present have an awareness of, what their mind is doing. In other words, the mind is a great, useful tool if we use the mind and the mind isn't using us.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So to your point about what's the benefit of awareness, it's so that we're not used by the mind and we're using the mind for our own purposes, right?
Use it for good, not evil.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. So in the space of boredom, there's a great opportunity to just kind of see what rises to the top. Where's my mind going? Like, for example, just in a basic way, we talk about boredom, and the immediate thing we tend to do with boredom is label it as being bad.
True.
That's the thing that rises to the top.
Absolutely, because it's got a bad connotation. I'm bored.
I'm
my
bored.
God,
Right? I'm bored.
I'm so bored.
But that's a mental narrative that has become, in most cases, deeply conditioned in the human experience.
So if we
negatively label that space,
if we flip it and go, and again, everybody's busy. So now, just the way you explained it, if you flip that narrative and go, oh, thank God, I've got nothing to do.
Amen.
Oh,
Amen.
I don't have work bothering me. I don't have my family bothering me. I'm just coming back to sitting on your porch or deck or whatever. I've got nothing to do. I'm just going to embrace this for the beauty of it and just let my mind stop going 1,000 miles an hour.
How great is that?
Okay.
I'm that's amazing because it's not unless you quiet everything to be able to then become that witnessing presence to your thinking that you have an ability then to be able to work with that and say, why? Look at this conditioned process of just labeling these experiences being negative, whether it's waiting in line, waiting in an office, labeling space as boredom. I mean, all of those are just mental narratives that are thoughts that completely change the experience of that space you're in. It can either be your friend or it can be your enemy, depending upon what you tell yourself in that mental narrative. And it's through boredom that we can increase an opportunity to bring awareness to that.
And then that betters your life. So your boredom could be also coming back to your first comment was your time for creativity.
Absolutely.
So you might be bored. You're bringing self-awareness to yourself, but that creates the creativity of, all right, I'm self-aware of where I am and what I'm doing right now. But how can I get better? How can I do better at hosting this show? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better golfer? Whatever it might be. I know
that's a big topic.
We don't have that kind of
time.
That's
another time.
I'm not that bored.
That might be a 3-part series here.
But you know what I mean? But
I totally understand.
Okay.
No, I get it. I mean, so that's another great opportunity, right? So one of the things that we can do with boredom is we can kind of ask ourselves, okay, why am I bored? Am I bored? Am I bored because I'm not challenged enough? Am I bored because the things that I'm doing are not necessarily aligned with my values? Am I bored because I need to find something that is more mentally stimulating for me. And that's another way that we can use boredom to do a bit of a deeper dive to make sure, or to look at least with interest, that our lives are aligned with what, our values and our principles and our objectives are.
So kind of coming back to that, you're waiting in line at the grocery store. Okay, why am I bored? Well, this line's not moving fast enough.
Precisely.
But again, why is the line? Why are you upset that the line's not moving fast enough? Is it you have other stressors in your life that you got to get to? So why not? Okay, yeah, all right. This line's not moving fast enough because I got to get to work, school. I got to get to the game, the dance class, whatever. You know what? No matter how fast this line goes, you're still going to be late.
Correct.
So just embrace it.
So again, I love these insights that you bring to the questions, right? These are great, deep questions. And I think some of that, the answer to that falls in line with how we are as a culture, as a society, right? And so
absolutely.
one of the things that we value in our culture is how many things can we get done in the shortest amount of time?
I'm awake from this hour to that hour. What can I get done?
I mean, is that not true?
Absolutely.
Right. So we as a culture value production, the amount of things that we can do in the shortest period of time. So to your point about why we get all worked up about the fact that we have to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes to pick up something at a store, right? It's because we're always living in the future, right?
Absolutely.
Which is not the present moment,
right?
Right.
Be present.
I mean, that's another great topic we've kicked around a little bit once in a while, you and I, and that is, I love this. I love this question. If it weren't for thought, where would the past and future be?
All right, Rob, you're blowing my mind.
Think about
it. Now I'm going to sit on my deck and think about that one.
Well, think about it. If it weren't for thinking, where would the past and future be? There wouldn't be a past and future because it's always just now.
It's now,
right? So when we're in line and we're frustrated, it's because we're thinking, I got to get to the next thing.
Right, I gotta get to the next thing.
Right, future based.
We're up on our next commercial break. We'll think about that last one. If it weren't for the future and the past, we'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of InFocus. Today, we're talking about being bored and the benefit of being bored. Dr. Rob Robinson is across the desk from me today. Dr. Rob, thank you so very much for joining me.
Love it.
A fascinating conversation about boredom. I have to imagine, though, in your line of work, and any therapist, there's a lot of depression out there, a lot of anxiety out there that people are suffering from. I have to imagine that those people, just the thought of being bored is frightening because they stew in their thoughts.
Right.
But kind of coming back to how we started this conversation, and you brought it up, you go, we grew up with boredom as a negative thing. Your parents, hey, Mom, I'm bored. Were you bored? I'll give you something to be bored about. Right? It was a negative thing. But if we flip that into, oh my God, I'm glad I'm bored. No matter what your anxiety or depression may be, you can channel that to make your life better so you're not bored. Did I kind of encapsulate that?
Listen, there's no question that that's a powerful pointer, right? And the reason that that's a powerful pointer is because of the very things that you're mentioning. I mean, we have been conditioned since we've been younger. Typically, many families, if you went and complained to your folks, your parents that you were bored, the typical response was, I'll give you something if you're bored.
Exactly.
Right. So
now it's work.
It wasn't just negative. Now you're going to get punished for being bored. Right. That's a real bad thing. And so we learn and get conditioned early on that this is bad. And then if you're depressed, right, to your point, the challenge with depression, obviously, is that becomes the filter, perceptual filter that we see through. Right. So everything we look at, it's like having sunglasses on. Everything we look at is darkened because of the depression. So when people who are depressed are bored, then they use the boredom to turn against themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a life. I have
Look at
nothing
all
to
those
do.
people; they're doing great over there.
Look at all the world around me, and especially if people are on some social media stuff and they see the world, people with umbrella drinks on the beach and whatever.
Right.
That filter of depression makes it even worse to be bored because you're just using it as evidence against yourself.
Right.
Right. And that's where we have an opportunity to create change through awareness. Look at what I'm doing to myself. And one of the reasons people become depressed is through negative thinking, negative narratives,
Right.
conditioned, where that becomes the overriding theme in everything that they may tell themselves. So it's just constantly building negative sentiment.
And like you said earlier, if it weren't for thought, thinking about the future or the past, where would you be right now?
I love that.
It's brilliant.
Well, I mean,
that's all we think about, right? Is what happened in the past. What keeps me up at night? Oh, right? Man, I shouldn't have said that to that teacher back in 1983 in junior high school.
We're still holding ourselves hostage.
Exactly. Or, oh my God, I got this big thing coming up in 2 weeks. If you eliminate the past and the future, you've only got right now.
So that, I think, is one of the key components to mental health and well-being.
Okay.
Right? Because anxiety is always related to some future-based worry, whether we're catastrophizing about how we think something's going to be, worst case scenario, or worried about, how something's going to happen, work out, or, what's going to happen to me in the future, or how's this event going to turn out? And yet the only place you can experience that is in thought, because, and this is not philosophical, this is absolutely, how can you, this is inarguable. It doesn't exist. The future does not exist.
Right.
Right. And the past is gone as well. The only place that can be kept alive is in thinking.
Right.
And you said, I mean, sometimes you don't let go of these things that took place in the past. And it's not the event that creates the suffering. It's the inability to let go of it. So when you're bored and there's space, you have an opportunity to say, wow, what am I doing?
Right.
It's just this moment, this space.
It's funny. I was watching this professor talk about you, not you, but you as in general population.
Sure.
And it was, you think about you more than anybody else thinks about you. So my example of, I can't believe I said that to that teacher back in 1983.
Right.
A minute and a half after that incident in 1983, that was out of that teacher's mind, yet it's still here 42 years later,
No,
but you're the only one who thinks about you. And so if you eliminate that anxiety of, oh my God, I said this to this person, or I did this, you're going to have a better life.
There's no question. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, obviously, I mean, it's a part of what we do as humans. And certain events and circumstances and situations can trigger, reactions based on, what we value and how we want to be. But it's essential to be able to say, okay, I'm done with this, right? I'm finished with all of the mental torment. I'm not going to hold myself hostage over this any longer. I'm going to let it go. And it's a practice.
Right. You have to work at it.
You can't just say that one time. I mean, every time it comes up, you have to take a deep breath and say, I'm letting it go as you exhale, just letting it go. Right. And just 2 quick points. I mean,
we got about 10 seconds left. Make them quick.
Real quick. So the Buddha and Jesus, right? 2 unbelievably powerful spiritual teachers.
Right.
Jesus used to say, look at the lilies. They don't spin or toil. And the Buddha was asked, so Master, what's happiness? And he said, nothing. Nothing is happiness, meaning emptiness, space, boredom.
Is joy.
Joy.
Perfect way to end. Dr. Rob Robinson, wonderful having you here. Folks, embrace the boredom. We'll see you next time right here on InFocus.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.